What's good? It's your boy Shot Shooter, aka J Shields, back with another video. We'll be looking at $375,000 snake bite. So it's a short video.
Oh yeah, that is a big boy. This is a very powerful snake.
Love nature, y'all. Love nature.
That right there is enough to
learn
kill
about
5
it.
human beings.
A rattlesnake bite may need as many as 25
a lot
vials of
the stuff out
anti-venom.
there.
So how much does something like that cost, you were asking?
Something big's gonna happen. Whoa! Immediate explosion of red blood cells. I think it's fair to say that everybody loves a good old-fashioned East Coast versus West Coast battle, whether that's in sports, music, or in our case, reptiles. And today, we're going to compare the venoms of the Eastern diamondback rattlesnake versus the Western diamondback rattlesnake. We're gonna see how they stand up against human blood, my blood. But to do that, first we've got to milk the snakes. Now, Carl, in your opinion, which snake do you think is more potent, Eastern or Western?
Yeah, so that's a really tough question, Coyote. Conventional wisdom kind of says the Eastern diamondback is probably just a little bit more potent. Western diamondbacks, in very rare instances, can have a neurotoxin, but that's unusual. So they're both right there. They're both the big game of North America and certainly potentially lethal snakes.
Okay, the most notorious venomous snakes in the United States. I know I'm ready. You guys are ready. Everybody out there watching is ready. It's time to bring out the Western diamondback rattlesnake.
Big and Michael Jordan.
Oh yeah, that is a big boy.
Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful coloration. My goodness. That's that classic warning right there.
Oh,
you better
boy.
back up. Don't get too close. Oh, it's flighty, all right.
Come on in. Good.
No pressure here.
Perfect. Go ahead and come down. All right, so Coyote, work your way in here.
Okay. Wow.
Good.
That is a big snake.
That's kind of an average, 4.5 foot Western diamondback. Of course, these guys
That's
will go
crazy.
over 6
Them-
feet when
them
they're
ones in the
full-grown.
pet store
They're
and
beautiful. This is
PetSmart
really
get
the
about 4
classic
feet.
rattlesnake of the American West.
Yeah.
So they're beautiful snakes. It's a pretty toxic venom, and they still account for a fair amount of snake bite in North America every year.
It's
So we're gonna let this
insane.
guy
I would
bite.
never
They're
do
typically
that,
pretty
man.
good producers.
I pet a snake, but not like, I'm not finna pet no.
Drop one fang, so I don't know if you can see it, but you only got a fang on the right side there. And so rattlesnakes shed their fangs. And about every 3 or 4 months, a rattlesnake will drop a fang and bring a brand new fang into its place. And sometimes there's a little gap in coverage, if you will, there. So you
Whoa.
can see this venom on the top of the vial here.
Yeah.
So the duct is still putting out venom, but there was no injection apparatus to get it into the vial. So we're gonna pipette that off of there, move it back into the glass where it should be. In a snake like this, in a snake bite, you'd only get one fang, really, so that would be to your benefit, if that makes sense.
Very interesting.
All right, we'll go back in. If you're good, I'm ready.
I'm good, yep.
There we go. You can pull that lid back for me, good. And we're gonna bring him back in the box. Perfect. And good. So
That's
now you
insane.
can pick up that fang, and I don't know if you can see it, but on the front end of that fang is the hole.
Yes, I do see it.
So these guys have a beautiful hollow hypodermic needle that's perfectly adapted to injecting venom into a warm-blooded prey item.
Now, what would happen
wonder how
if I
sharp that
jabbed
thing
that
is.
into my hand? Would that be
Like,
enough
if you
to
just touch it,
pierce and put
just
some
a
venom in?
little
certainly
bit.
be quote
You ever
unquote
touch something so
envenomation.
sharp
I don't think you would get
that
enough venom
even
to
if you
cause any
just
real
tap
trouble,
it
but
on
you
your
would
finger,
certainly
you
know
can
you've
just feel
stuck
the
yourself with
potential
something that has more
of
than
how
just a
sharp it
pointy
is.
end.
I know what the audience is thinking right now. Dude, Coyote, let's see what happens if you get bitten by a rattlesnake thing. Not gonna happen, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise that either.
So how do you feel about this yield of venom and the amount that came out of that snake? Is that enough to kill a human if anti-venom was not received?
Sure, you're certainly looking at least 100 milligrams of dry weight there.
Can I hold this up?
Yep, and we think that's probably at least 1 lethal dose of venom. Western diamondback venom is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of that. About 100 milligrams is a lethal dose to an adult. Now remember, on an average bite for a snake that size, you might typically see 350 milligrams, 400 milligrams. So this was a low yield, partially because of that tooth being shed out, but it's certainly enough to really cause problems. I mean, that much Western diamondback venom is a hospital antivenom event for sure.
Wow, that's
insane.
That is impressive right there.
Beautiful.
All right, well, now that we've seen
If
the
y'all
power
don't know
and the
Wild
venom of the
Coyote
Western
from Brave and
Diamondback,
Wild,
it's
he
time to go
actually
East
got
Coast.
It's time to go East Coast.
Time to bring out the
My
Eastern
personal
Diamondback.
favorite.
he actually got
And we'll
promoted
see
to
whether or not the Eastern
I think
Diamondback gives us a larger
Animal
yield
Planet
of venom,
now.
and then we'll kind
He
of talk
just
about
did
how those two
YouTube.
snakes match up.
Sounds
him and
great,
his two
Coyote.
friends.
Sounds good.
and
There she goes. Okay.
Animal Planet
This might
seen
be a
what he
very
did, and
big snake.
And just
now he's
close
getting
up.
paid big.
All right, here I
But
come.
this
And
dude
then
got
Mark,
bit
come on
by
up.
so
Oh,
many
wow, that
things.
is a huge
To me, he's like the new
Holy
crocodile
mackerel.
hunter of this generation.
That's bigger than the Eastern Diamondback.
does
we
a
milked
lot of
last
stuff.
time.
She's a good
Stuff
sized
I would
snake.
never
She's
do.
a little
I'll
bit
tell you that.
agitated.
Yep, I can see
So
that.
we're going to try to kind of work her.
This
Back
the
to the
Eastern
table.
Diamondback rattlesnake.
Eastern diamondbacks, right, are the largest rattlesnakes in North America, just by a little. They get over 7 feet in length. This snake is just shy of 5 feet. She's a young female. And you can get a sense of how big the head is on that rattlesnake and what she's capable of. So we're going to watch her bite. And the Eastern Diamondback is absolutely one of our favorites. It's a snake we handle lots of here at MedToxin. And of course, this venom is used in the Antivenom Project in North America. So it's an important venom to produce in fair quantities. So I'm going to shift her back a little bit. She might do it for me. And
Okay.
Laura's going to give her a press.
Ooh, that's a delicate little balance right there.
Okay, you're perfect. Don't change anything. Good. Perfect.
Got it.
Boy, you
Whoa.
know she mad.
This is a very powerful snake.
And you guys tell me when you're good. Good. And that's a little more significant yield, a little more in line with what's proper for a rattlesnake of that size. So that's about 500 milligrams, and one shot out. And of course, think about 100 milligrams is lethal. So
Bruh.
you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 lethal doses of venom.
I
in
wonder,
one bite.
do
And
they
it
only
gives you
got
a
one
sense,
bite in them, or
Coyote,
can they
of
keep
how
going?
potentially dangerous the Eastern Diamondback rattlesnake is. Snake bite from a big rattlesnake is no joke. I mean, this is an event where you're talking dozens of vials of antivenom to counteract that snake's venom.
Carl said dozens of vials of antivenom if you were
That's
bitten by a
insane.
large rattlesnake with a significant yield of venom. So how much does something like that cost, you were asking? Venom can be difficult to value, but a single vial of pit viper antivenom in North America is typically around $15,000.
Wow.
And on average, a rattlesnake bite may need as many as 25 vials. Keep in mind, this doesn't factor in the hospital cost, which often includes emergency room treatment and several weeks spent in recovery. So when you do the math, your misfortune equates to more than $375,000.
That's insane.
Absolutely massive. Look at this. The snake's girth is bigger around than my arm is.
She's beautiful, huh?
It's just an amazing snake. Look at the beautiful pattern. Those diamonds. I mean, this snake is so incredible.
So we'll put this guy back, and then we'll
You
talk a
can
little
tell
bit
that
about
dude
Western
been
versus
bit.
Eastern.
Okay,
or
sounds
something.
Great
good.
job.
He
Thanks.
got
Yep.
scrapes
Got
on
it.
his
You.
arm.
You got it okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That Eastern was a little bit bigger, and that right there is enough to kill what Carl said, easily 5 human beings. One bite, 5 people. That is impressive. Okay, Carl, so when I look at that
That looked
yield
like
of venom as compared to the Western
Mountain Dew, I ain't
Diamondback,
gonna
clearly
lie.
we got more out of the Eastern Diamondback. So in that East Coast versus West Coast battle, I'm probably gonna throw it to the East Coast as being a more dangerous snake bite when it comes to venom yield, but again, that might have to do with the snake on a particular day and the snake's size,
No
right?
question. And I think what we're really seeing here is, don't forget, snakes meter their venom. They decide how much they're going to inject. What you're seeing there in terms of quantity is not really capability, but decision making. You
Right.
don't want to interact with a venomous snake. They don't want anything to do with you. They want to be left alone. And even though venom's primary purpose is in snakes, is obtaining food, you can see that a defensive bite, which is what you're seeing here, still can be a really significant envenomation.
So both of these snakes,
That's
the
insane.
eastern diamondback and the western diamondback, a bite from that snake is considered a medical emergency. It can take your life if you do not receive antivenom. Now, when it comes to the potency of the venom, the only real way to determine what this venom is doing to human blood cells is to actually mix that venom into blood, my blood. And to do that, we're going to move to the next step of the experiment, where we're going to draw blood from me and then look at it underneath a microscope.
To start, we perform a rudimentary test with 3 petri dishes of my blood. The control has no venom, while the other 2 are each given a small sample of the respective venoms, clearly labeled Eastern Diamondback and Western Diamondback. After sitting for several minutes, we visually notice slight coagulation near the drops of venom, but a much lower blood viscosity near the outer edges of the dish. To really see the cellular destruction your body would be facing if you were tagged by a rattlesnake, we need to turn to the microscope.
So what we're going to do now
That's
is
crazy.
get a small amount of venom into the pipette. Hunter, I'll let you do the honors, and how much are we going to pull out?
We're gonna do 2 microliters.
Okay.
It's a very small drop.
That's like just the prick of the edge of a fang, pretty much. Something big is going to happen. Snake venom going, whoa! Holy mackerel, immediate explosion of red blood cells. Wow, that just completely engulfed the screen. Didn't see that coming.
That was
That's
quick.
crazy.
So the venom is actually drawing the blood out from underneath the cover slip into its drop. Interestingly though, it's not moving very quickly. A little bit of a different reaction than we're expecting. Let's see, we'll go up to 100 magnification.
So were those a bunch of dead red blood cells right there, right at the edge line?
There's a few out floating in the venom, but that's actually in the venom, and the cells are still pretty whole. Just a little
Wow.
different than what we thought to see.
Really interesting reaction that we got under the microscope from the Eastern Diamondback venom. Almost like there's an anticoagulant at work. Not as much destruction of the red blood cells as I think we originally anticipated. When the venom hit the edge of the slide, there was an immediate explosion of blood cells, and then it just kind of stopped. But when you look at the slide itself, if you look here, I'll hold this up, you can see where the venom pulled all of the blood out and into it, and it just coagulated it there in a clump. Very
That's
interesting
crazy.
visually. Now we need to take a look at the Western Diamondback. Ooh, that's a big slug. Whoa, look at that.
Snaps.
Instantaneous destruction, it looked like. Whoa, that was like an atomic bomb dropping and just wiping out the cells along the edge line.
And you can see too on the actual slide, you can see how it's just broken up those
Yes.
blood vessels. Yeah, those blood cells.
That was catastrophic the way that that hit. Very different from the Eastern Diamondback.
Yeah, and it's coming in these kind of lines too. So it's not just an extreme explosion, but it's definitely causing a lot of cell death here. You can see it under the 100 times magnification and with the naked eye.
So these black dots that we're seeing here, like the Eastern Diamondback, is that dead cell material?
It could be dead cells, it could be clotted cells. It's hard to say. It looks like the blood cells are grouping together.
So maybe some procoagulant components to this venom as well.
And you can tell they've really lost a lot of their morphology, right? They're not these nice, round donut shapes anymore. They're kind of more spread out. Certainly this chain here of cells is really unhealthy and abnormal. So these are cells which are dead and going to explode, essentially.
That's crazy.
All right, Hunter, well, at this point, I would say that we have learned a lot. From the rudimentary experiment to what we saw underneath the microscope, without question, rattlesnake venom is extremely destructive to the blood cells. Now, is this what you expected to see today?
Man, just so cool to see it, really. I had no idea how it would look.
Well, we learned a lot, and what this does tell us is that both of these snakes, the 2 dominant rattlesnake species in the United States, are incredibly potent, so a bite would be considered a medical emergency. But the good news is that if you are bitten, there is plenty of antivenom, which means that if you make it to a medical center in enough time, your chances of survival are exponentially increased as long as you receive that antivenom. Hunter, thank you so much for letting us do this experiment today. It was extremely educational, and hopefully this serves as a warning as to why I will never intentionally be bitten by a rattlesnake.
I agree.
I'm Coyote Peterson. Be brave. Stay wild. We'll see you on the next adventure.
Oh, that's crazy. I like how they break it down, what it does to you. what you can actually see it do to your blood cells if you ever get bit by venom. I'm assuming there's probably some spiders that's the venom kind of does the same, similar, maybe break it down the same way under a microscope. But I don't know. Respect nature. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we out.